Good morning, everyone. Good morning. If you want to take your seats, thank you so much for being here this morning. And I know that April thanks you very much for also being here. And my name is Pastor Barb Dean, and this is an honor and pleasure to be here with you guys all today. I want to introduce to you April Hawley. She's one of the co-founders of the M21 Empowerment. She's a certified speaker and coach trainer with the John Maxwell team. That's amazing. And she's a member of this church, Living Word Outreach Ministries, and we're very proud of her. She is a gold digger. Not a gold digger, but a gold digger. Although if there's gold, I bet you'd dig it, wouldn't you? Dig the gold in people. That's where you find the greatest gold, is inside of other people. And then also Tuan Nguyen, he's from Houston, Texas, and all the way to Spencer, Iowa. He probably had culture shock when he entered our beautiful town. Also a co-founder of the M21 Empowerment. And there's one other person that is also on their team. Her name is Gethsemane Moss, and she's not able to be here today, so actually she recorded a video. So we're excited to listen to that and to get moving and let these guys explain more to you why we're all here today. So thank you, and we're going to roll that video now.
What I'm trying to figure out is who in their right mind will want to live like a totally just life unfulfilled. Not me, and you shouldn't either. Who told you that it was okay to live like without all of your talents being like brought out to the surface? I mean, like, really, who is teaching this stuff? Are they teaching you guys that in school? Like, really, I want to know, because it is so against the law. I wanted to take this opportunity to say greetings, Spencer, Iowa. It is quite the windy day out here in Benicia, California. I am so sorry that I can't be there with you, but you are in awesome hands with April and Tuan. And so what I wanted to leave you with is a message. I'm going to try this again for my car. It's like so windy out there. I just wanted to really kind of money, and there's more to life than just making the money. And so I had to stop and I had to listen. The year before that, in November of 2017, I was actually diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And so even from that point, I had just, I kept telling myself, oh, I can just do this. I'll just retire. I just got to stick it out. But it wasn't my life. I realized that my life was too precious to continue to waste time. And with that illness, it certainly made me think about life. And how I was treating myself. The second thing was that I asked God for direction, because the one thing I do not want to do, or for anybody to do, is to live a life that is not in alignment with what God has for you. And so what I understand, and I totally I really stress to anybody that I own those gifts and talents. It's up to us to do that. And not only that, the world needs to really see and feel those gifts and talents, because that's what really makes our lives so much more meaningful. And I knew that I wasn't using all of my gifts and talents, because I could do a whole bunch of stuff, and that was what I was doing, was just a tiny bit of what it was, and it really wasn't even in the purpose or in alignment for what God has. Find a support system, because one of the things I was afraid of was that who am I going to talk to? Like, everybody around me was really thinking the same thing. They were all within the same profession, and so their mindset was completely just in that particular mindset. So they were happy with everything. They were happy with the status quo. But for me, I've always wanted more, and I had just got to that point in my life where you have to find people to support you. You do not have to do this alone. There are people out there to help you. Myself, April, and Tuan are just three examples of sources for you to be able to just continue to move in your path in life. And so one of the other things is to develop a plan. Don't just have an idea. Have a plan. So write down the things that you want to accomplish, and just start taking baby step, day by day, action by action, and moment by moment, decision by decision. Be intentional about what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. Just don't ever give up. If you have any dreams or hopes that you've ever had for your life, it can still happen. And so be encouraged in knowing that. And you know you have gifts and talents, because we all have gifts and talents. And so it's just a matter of stopping and thinking and taking that time to hear your voice, hear God's message for you. And I don't care if you're 10 or if you're 60, and if you still had dreams and hopes, ideas for your life, do it. As long as you have breath in your body, you still have a chance. So I encourage you to have an awesome rest of the day and no silent auction items. Oh, I wish I was there to bid on it myself. But anyway, be encouraged, and one day soon I will come to visit you. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Thank you guys so much for all being here. Thank you for chiming in on live stream. This is a big deal to M21. It's so important to our hearts, and thank you, Pastor Barb. I could not, nor would we have this be here today without your support, without members of the church, people in our community that have reached out and donated to this cause because they saw how much value and how important it was to Tuan and I and the community outreach. They have done so much for this community that we wanted to share and show value. So if I look back, that's because I'm new at this and I just want to make sure that everything looks good. So that's just how this is going to work. But no, we really do appreciate it. And just going into this event, I was freaking out. Like every detail that I thought was going to be important actually didn't have, it made no difference. When I'm sitting up here right now and looking at the people that knew how important this was to me and that they took time out of their day to show up, it means the world to me. It brings joy to my heart and tears to my eyes because it shows how much you care about us and what this movement means. So M21, how did this get started? What brought all this together? And what that looks like is, let's see, how do I even start this? I went to the IMC in 2019, back in March, and Tuan had come up on stage there, and there was 3,000 like-minded people with this amount of energy that was just crazy. And he had told his story about addiction and the struggles and incarceration. And at that moment, there was something inside of me that I knew either I was meant to meet him, but his voice was very familiar. A couple days had passed, and we came to this Facebook post, and as you could have seen in the big screen, there was a Bachelor picture of our mentors and him, which looked like The Bachelor, but in fact, it was just some comments that had been made back and forth. I had inboxed him telling him how proud of him that I was that he overcome this struggle of addiction, and he took this initiative to become a better person. So all of a sudden, it was March 14th, and we just started talking, and from that point forward, we started realizing that we had a dream and that we needed to share it with more people. And we were doing this average, above average, and we were coming back and forth with all these things, but what mostly stuck with us was Movement21, M21 empowerment. And what that looked like is breaking barriers within our community, making an impact with communication and leadership, because that's what we stand for. We didn't go just to the John Maxwell team certification just to say we had some title. We wanted to make a difference. I went broke being a part of that certification. Literally, I went broke. Like, I took my savings account and invested in myself because I believed that I could make a difference in this world. So we started this business, and in 90 days, so anybody on live stream, you can do this. In 90 days, we completely changed our life. We launched 2 businesses, Prison Transformation Initiative nonprofit and M21 Empowerment. And by doing this, we showed other people this wasn't just another certification to put up on the wall and say, great job. You drained your whole savings account, you went broke, but we are making a difference, and this is what's the most important part. So As I go into this, this is how I started building my 5 keys to unlocking your potential. And really, it was looking at faith in reverse. I didn't know what was happening until I had to look back at 7 years of sobriety and how I got to that point. I didn't know what that meant. And so, as you can see, awareness, well, you can't see that yet. Let me show you. Awareness was really this picture. When you looked at this 30-year-old female, it looked like she had her stuff together. I was a mom of 3. I had just moved to Spencer, Iowa, started an amazing job at US Cellular. I thought I had it all together. But what none of you actually knew is I was struggling every single day, and I woke up. Actually, most days I didn't even wake up because I never went to sleep. I was a full-blown addict in this picture. I was 30 years old, and I used every single day since the age of 12. There was not a day that went by besides little small parts of my life that I actually didn't use. And those big parts were, I ended up getting in a lot of trouble at 17 years old, and it put me in a youth detention center. And I had to spend the next 2 weeks there thinking about what was going to happen to me. The next 3 months on house arrest. And at the time, anybody that's ever been on house arrest, you cannot leave your house. And I was stuck with my mother, of all people, inside of this house. Like, I couldn't leave, and she was like a watchdog. She was trying to make sure I did everything, that I made sure I was following through. But all I could think about was, how did I get to this part in my life at 17 years old? So for the next, 6 years, I was actually clean. And then all of a sudden, one night, making very bad decisions, I said, great, it would be awesome. Let's reuse. So I relapsed after almost my 7th year of sobriety. I thought, how did I get to that point? How did I allow myself to stumble backwards? And it's because I didn't share my story enough. I didn't tell enough people that I was sober because I was embarrassed about it. So for the next 6.5 years of my life, I was a full-blown addict every single day. But the way that I justified it is because I never missed work. I didn't lie. I didn't steal. I didn't do anything that a typical drug addict would do. So I became the ethical drug addict. How crazy is that even sound, that I was an ethical drug addict? But I made it okay because I wasn't lying, I wasn't stealing, I wasn't doing things that typical people did to support their habit. I had a clean house, I took care of my kids, I didn't do anything that you would think of a typical addict to do. But one day, my awareness, I had to acknowledge very quickly what was about to change in my life. December 12th, 2012, my life flipped upside down. And when I tell you that, it was 13 days before Christmas. And at this point, I got a phone call from social services. It was 8:15 in the morning. I was still groggy, probably from coming down, and I sat there and answered the phone. Like I said, 8:15 in the morning, you're not really together, and they said, April, you need to pack some clothes and call the grandparents. The kids can't stay with you anymore. At that moment, I thought, oh my God, I don't know if anybody in this room has had that moment where your entire life flashes in front of you, and every decision that you had made up to that point, you thought, oh my gosh, how did I get to this point? I had been 30 years old. I was just getting back on track. I didn't lie. I didn't steal. I didn't do anything that was wrong. But whoever made that phone call saved my life. But I didn't know it until looking back, that it was really faith that God knew I was meant for more. And so I became aware of this situation because I had to really acknowledge that this person didn't look like I was always, it wasn't that I lost my teeth, it wasn't that I wasn't taking care of myself. So I believe that the awareness comes from acknowledging the parts of your life that you don't want other people to see. So then this comes along. This woman here. I was 4 years into sobriety on that picture on the left. I was 43 pounds overweight, and I was drinking to hide all of the pain and embarrassment that I had caused to myself, my family. But not only that, during this time, I should back up, because 4 months after I had gotten sober, my mom died from brain cancer. Every single person probably would have made it okay that I relapsed, but I knew I had to keep pushing through. I had to believe in myself, because you look at that. The key to belief is really, you cannot travel without until you travel within. That picture of me being 43 pounds overweight was struggle, pain, depression. I hated where I was in my marriage. It was toxic. It wasn't serving anybody. So, from believing in myself, I had heard these words, and I'm sure every female in here, when I tell you this, will probably go, oh my gosh, he did not just say this. My dad had come up to me and said, April, you're starting to look like me. A big gut and no butt. I thought, what? What did this guy just tell me? I knew he loved me. I knew he wasn't saying it to hurt my feelings, but I thought, there is no way that I have a big gut and no butt. Well, I didn't have a butt. That was true. But I didn't think that I had a big gut, but I did. So that night, I went in my bathroom mirror, and I had to look at myself and realize that I was not only emotionally, but I was physically broken in every area of my life. I was sober. I wasn't using, but I was drinking to hide this pain that was inside of me, because I knew I still wasn't holding up to my value system. I wasn't holding up to the potential that I knew was inside of me. So I allowed myself to become overweight, to feel terrible about myself, to realize I was stuck in a toxic marriage. It wasn't because we didn't love each other. It's because we were addicts when we got together. That's all we knew. So through this, I really had to start acknowledging, believing, and then really it came through choice. Who you are determines what you do. And so I started a 21-day health and fitness challenge group. I knew if I had done anything more than that 21 days, that I would have failed like every single time before, because it was too much. I didn't want to think of how much it was going to take. I didn't want to think of 5 years down the road, I'm going to have to eat clean. I'm going to have to work out every single day. I didn't want to think about the work that was going to have to go into it. But I knew that those three needed me. Those three kids needed a healthy mom, a healthy body, that they needed emotional support. And so the key to really choosing a better life was knowing that I was meant for more, that I had to put in the work. If I wanted to be more, I had to do more, and I had to step up to the plate even when I didn't feel like it. There are days that I don't have the motivation to get up and work out, but I did it because I know if I didn't, that I would be right back to this person that was unaware of where she was and that she was lost and broken. You may have not looked the part, but I was so broken. And I knew that between that I had to get from point A to point B. And that is hard work and determination. That to me, when I look at that picture, sometimes I don't even realize that was myself. But I knew that those three looked up to me, that they loved me, and that I couldn't let them have a childhood like I did. I had loving parents. They did love me. They just didn't know how to parent because there was always chaos around. There wasn't, God brought into our home. There wasn't, all that I've ever known my entire life is chaos and addiction, incarceration. Every single person that's been in my life has been an addict or incarcerated. So when that's all you know, that's all you expect. And so I was living a Jerry Springer life, and that's how I became April Hawley Live when I started transitioning, because I felt like I was living this life, I was progressing, but it was still in chaos. I was in a marriage for 11 years, but I had started to realize that through these choices and changing to develop into the person that I needed to be, that I had to make some very, very hard choices. And those choices including ending a toxic marriage. And it wasn't because I didn't love him, it's because he wasn't loving himself enough, and you can't make somebody change because of you. They have to change because they want to be a better person for themselves. And he's taken those steps now. So I give him kudos on that, but I just knew that if I wanted a better life for these kids, that no matter how much love I had for him, I had to love them more, but love myself even more. So between that, this is when the key of determination really came into play. There is fortune in the follow-through. Waking up every single day, 4:30 a.m. I was hitting CrossFit. I was doing 21-day Beachbody challenges. Sometimes I would even drink. I would work out, and then at nighttime I would drink just so I could feel better, and then realize that I was running myself in a circle. I was working my butt off just so I could drink at nighttime because I thought that was my relaxation time. When in fact, I just needed to start surrounding myself with healthier people. I needed strong females because in my life, females to me were considered jealousy and competition. I'd never known what a healthy female relationship looked like because my mother loved me, but she didn't know how to show love to me. My dad loved me, but he was also busy working and driving truck. So then that left my other family members, which were my brothers. And they were 13 and 8 years older than me. They already had lives of their own. They were struggling with their own issues. So I just knew, wrapping that all back around, that if I wanted a better life, I had to put in the determination to wake up early, do the things that other people weren't willing to do so I could have a better life. And anybody that knows me knows that I say every day, you have to do the things that other people aren't willing to do so you can have what other people don't. And that's over and over again I tell myself. Just take a moment and yell out to the person next to you, I am worth an amazing life. Because I know I'm worth an amazing life. Every day I wake up telling myself these affirmations. I am fierce, I am strong, and I am determined. I am worth an amazing life because I am. Because of well, I'll go back to that. That was false. So it's because of these three. Really, they keep me determined every day. They push me to be a better version of myself. And when I realized that I now have a 14, 12, and 10-year-old, and if I don't want my 12-year-old to be in the same pattern of addiction, then I've got to show by example. I have to show her that she doesn't have to settle for less than what she deserves. And that's why that marriage had to end too, because I couldn't allow her to see that I was settling. And it doesn't make him a bad person. It was making me a bad person. It was making me angry every single day that I was allowing myself to settle for an average life. And I knew I was better than that. I knew that I was meant to help people become the most badass version of themselves. And that was through determination. And really, to wrap that all back through, I mean, the key to excellence. That was overcoming all of these obstacles, the acknowledgement, the awareness, really, the belief in myself, the choices that I was making, being determined to wake up and make a difference even when I didn't feel like it. And what I did to become excellent was, really average isn't good enough. I don't settle for average. I don't allow my kids to settle for average. But I took a leap and I built my wings on the way down. And how did I do that? I took every last drop of my savings account, every last drop, and I invested it into the John Maxwell team. I wanted to be a certified coach, speaker, trainer, so that other people could see that you don't have to settle for average. You may be broke, you may be broken, you may be emotionally, physically bankrupt, but you don't have to stay there. It is a choice to stay there, and if you allow it, then you are settling for less than you deserve. So I'm telling you to stand up for yourself. Get on the other side of excellence. Really, on the whole flip side of this is every person that is meant to be here today showed up. And I appreciate every single one of you. Anna, Peggy, Christine, Beth, Pastor Barb, Jean, all of you guys. Arnold's Motor Supply donated a $600 Yeti cooler because they believed in this cause so much. I was so frustrated with Twan the other night sitting in here, not to throw you under the bus, but I was so frustrated of all this hard work, and it's a lot of preparation, and we stood in the back, and he had just made a comment to me, and it wasn't out of meanness. It was that he said something about I didn't want to walk into it not being prepared, and when I heard it, I took offense, and I got frustrated, and I was overwhelmed. But he didn't know all the hard work because he was in Houston. We were prepping over the phone. He wasn't able to see all the little details that were going in behind the scene. But just being here today and seeing all of you show up, seeing how this slideshow came together, how every person that was supposed to be here to support us showed up, and that's what my heart is thankful for, is that the people that believe in M21, that you will keep growing with us, that you will keep being a part of this coaching business, you will keep striving to be a better version of yourself, and don't ever settle for less than you deserve. And that's why I find that my main focus is females, fitness, and spiritual growth, because those are important factors. Don't settle. Don't just be average. Be more than what you believe that you are. Just believe you're meant for more. And I'm going to wrap this up so that it gives really Twan, he's an amazing speaker. He's been my business partner, my best friend. I couldn't have done this without him. He believes in me even when I don't believe in myself. And that can make me cry, which I'm not going to because it's not good for the camera, so I'm not going to do that. But he really helped me to unlock the potential that was inside of me, and has really become a mentor to me. And I don't tell him that because his head gets really, really big and it starts going sideways. So then we have to, bring him back to reality. So, but no, he really is a great speaker, and I want to give him enough time because his message is so powerful. We've struggled with addiction, incarceration, settling for less than what we deserve, and we just want you all to know that you are meant for more, and that you will be the best badass version of yourself if you just believe that you are meant for it. So, Twan from Houston, Texas, the floor is yours. I really do thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, April Hawley, for putting me on blast. I don't want to take nothing away from April's message, so let me just do a recap. 5 keys to unlocking your potential. She mentioned key number 1, awareness. You have to know yourself to grow yourself. You have to know yourself to grow yourself. And so I'm just really going to, this is not what I'm be speaking about, but I really want to take a moment to pause right now so we can really allow the growth to catch up. You have to know yourself to grow yourself. The most important question that you can ask a person is, who are you? And looking back in my life, I don't think anyone ever even asked me that. Another important question that no one ever asked me was, Twan, what is your dream? What's your vision? You have to know yourself to grow yourself. Everything begins with awareness. Her second point she emphasized on was the key to belief, right? She said, you can't travel without until you first travel within. Borrowed beliefs do not work because when I borrow something, I have to give it back. Think about that. If I borrow your belief and it never becomes internalized, then guess what? I'm going to end up giving it back to you once you leave my presence. And we live in a society today where borrowed belief seems to be something that is good enough. And just like April, I found myself in many situations where when I was in the right environment or around the right people, I would perform to a certain expectation. But once you take that environment or you take that person away from me, I go right back. I go right back to not believing in myself. You cannot travel without until you first travel with them. Key choice number 3, I'm not going to look at the screen because I think I got it down. I've heard it enough. Who you are determines what you do. With the key to awareness, with the key to belief, who you are will always determine what you do. And we look at key point number 4, which is the key to determination. Go hard or go home. There's fortune when you actually follow through. And then we close off with the key to excellence. What does that look like? Average is not good enough. I made a decision several years ago where I said, you know what? I got tired of sitting back just being a spectator. You know, I loved my comfort zone. And what I realized is when a person loves their comfort zone, they'll never enter into a zone of discovery. Because your discovery zone begins when your comfort zone ends. But for most of us, we love a place of comfort. And let me say this, that a person that loves their comfort will always be at their best. That's what you call an average and mediocre person. Because they'll never strive for anything more or anything less. Their comfort is their place of rest. And you think about our society today. How many people are living in a realm of comfort because it's good enough? It's good enough. You know, I'm just, prior to Wednesday coming, I actually didn't know anybody in Iowa. You know, everybody that I met in Iowa was either on Facebook or on social media. And so this is my first week in Iowa. You know, I met Pastor Barb through Facebook. You know, me and April have built this relationship, built this business just simply through social media. You know, and that was a big leap of faith for us. Because, entering into this event, I realized one thing. You don't have to be great to start. You do not have to be great to start. Come on, somebody. But you got to start somewhere. I'm speaking to somebody right now. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start somewhere. You know, I had a friend of mine ask me the other day, he said, Twan, what would make me want to pay you to come speak or coach me? Versus John Maxwell or Tony Robbins or Les Brown or somebody like that. You know what I told him? I said, they weren't good when they started. And guess what? If you can afford them over me, then go right ahead. Because I guarantee you, I'll be a little bit cheaper. I'll be a lot cheaper in speaking at an event or coaching. And you know what that did? That shut them down automatically. Because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to come into your life to try to suffocate you from pursuing your dream. But you got to know how to stand. You got to know how to stand in those moments. And that was another glimpse where God was showing me, he goes, opposition is going to come. Opposition will never stop coming. If you have a vision, your vision will get tested. The trials and tribulations will come and test your dream or your vision to see if it's authentic. And if it's truly by God, guess what? God will provide. I honestly believe that. So guess what? Hoping and pretending was not part of a strategy in me being here today. Hoping and pretending was not part of my strategy in even being up on stage today. You know how I got here? God impregnated me with a vision. God impregnated me with a vision 2 years ago that you would travel around the world and that you would speak. And when I grabbed a hold of that vision, I said, okay, send me. Send me, Lord. Send me. And you know how much courage and faith it took for me to even come here today? Do you know how hard it was for me in April to even take this leap of faith and not know what the end result would be? The only thing that kept us going was we had an end in mind. One person's vision is stronger than a force of 99 people that are merely interested in doing something. Do you have a vision, or are you just merely interested in doing something? One of the greatest advices I've ever heard was from a man named Miles Monroe. He said this. He said, people are not looking for you. The world is not looking for you, but what the world's looking for is what you're carrying inside you. You can live an entire life and be never noticed. You can live an entire life and never be noticed, and the only way a person would know you is by simply looking at the name on your tombstone. Because while you were on earth, you were created to do something. You were created to solve a problem in this generation. But for most of us, we become the problem instead of the problem solver. He goes on to say, never seek to chase success, but rather become a person of value. There's a big difference once you've tasted success and entered into the realm of significance. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a person that was just successful, or do you want to be a person that has significance? Do you want to live a life that is just impressive, or a life that can actually impact? I want to speak to you today concerning the essence of becoming. And that's the word I want you guys to highlight right now. The essence of becoming. Time is like currency. Whatever you spend your time doing is what you will become. Time is your currency. What you spend your time doing is what you will become. And for most of us, we don't know what becoming looks like. You know, in the beginning, when God created Adam, I love this analogy here because it speaks to this generation. But not only that, it speaks to the men in this generation because there's a lack of men. There's a big difference than being born a male and becoming a man. Big difference. In the beginning, when Adam was created in the image of God, he was given dominion to cultivate the land. He was given a work to do. But that word work here doesn't mean to actually do something. The word actually is ergon, which means to Adam, I need you to become. It means to become. I come from a prison culture where the biggest detriment, not only in prison culture and today's society, is that men and women lack vision and authenticity. And without vision, you can never find authenticity. And without authenticity, you'll never discover why you were created. You'll never tap into your potential and find out what problem you were sent on earth to solve because of the lack of vision. Do you know right now there's 2.7 million children that literally have their parents in prison? It's estimated that we're paying $70 billion in taxes to house prisoners because of the lack of vision, because of the lack of authenticity, because of the lack of not becoming. You know, one of my favorite quotes by Helen Keller was when she was asked, and if you guys know who Helen Keller is, she was born deaf and blind. When she was asked in an interview, what is worse than being born blind? You know what she said? It's to have sight but have no vision. This came from a woman that was blind, saying you can have sight, but the worst thing than that is to have sight and have no vision for your life. I'm going to go biblical here for a second, Proverbs 29:18. Where there's no vision, people are perishing. One of the first keys in becoming is I have to cultivate a vision. What's your vision? Where there is no vision, people are literally perishing right now. I'm not saying they're dying. I'm saying whatever you were created to do in their lives, they will perish away because you're not operating in your why. There's people right now in your network that are literally perishing because you have no vision in your life. You haven't defined your why. And since you haven't defined your why, you always forget why you started because you even didn't have a starting point. And it's so easy for us to get caught up in this world system where we're just running this rat race. And let me say this, that if you're not running your race, then you ain't got no grace for it. You have to run your own race. I'm speaking grace for your own race only. No one else can run this race for you. But you got to find that vision. I can't give this to you. This is something that you can't borrow. But let me remind you this. In the process of cultivating a vision, it will do two things. Number one, it will unite. And number two, it will also divide. Not everyone will come on this journey with you. But without a vision, how will you know? How will you know who's supposed to come on the journey with you if you don't have a clear vision? That's one of the most important things I emphasize as a leader and speaker is when you cast a fuzzy vision, guess what happens to the people? They become fuzzy. You know what happens when you are around a bunch of fuzzy people? It gets pretty fuzzy. What is your why? What is your why? Your vision will determine your destination. Do you agree? Here's what happens when you cultivate vision. Not only will it determine your destination, it will simplify your decisions. And for so many of us, we can't even say no, and we don't even know when to say yes because of the lack of clarity on where we're going. One of my favorite stories was about Alice in Wonderland. And if you guys seen this movie, there's this scene where she's walking on this road. And she comes across a fork in the road, and she meets this Cheshire cat. And she asks the cat, "Which road should I take?" The Cheshire cat says, "Well, where are you going?" Alice says, "Well, I don't know." The cat says, "Well, guess it doesn't really matter then. I guess it really doesn't matter which road you take because you're going nowhere. And despite which road you take, you'll still find yourself in the same situation, hanging out with the same people that have no direction either." So remember, here's what happens with the vision. It's either going to unite or it's going to divide. Not everyone can come on this journey with you. Hey, it's okay. Leave them behind. You can pray from a distance. Not everyone has the potential to come on this journey with you. But with that vision, you'll be able to identify who you can bring on your team. You know, one of the reasons why I leaped out there with April Hawley was we had a dream. And I realized she had areas of strengths that would accommodate my weaknesses. And yes, it gets frustrating working with her at times because I like calling her bossy wossy. She's very dominant, and so we get into these disputes all the time. And I'm like, wait, hold on, slow down, because she's quick on her feet. She's very challenging, and she makes decisions without actually following through. I'm a talker, so I'm very high in influence, and a lot of times my D personality comes out too. Where hold on, I got a better way. But one thing I realized with her was she has the potential to run this race with me in this dream. And that's all because I had a clear vision. But if it wasn't for that clear vision in my life, we wouldn't be here today. We would not be here today. Next, I want to speak to you about authenticity, right? Though we were all born as originals, you know what most of us become? We become imitators. Though we were all born as originals, most of us become simply imitators, trying to be someone simply that we're not. As a matter of fact, you know what? Just look at your neighbor and say, you know what? I am the original. Do you really believe that, though? Do you really believe that you are the original masterpiece that God has created? Do you really believe that? You know, I remember listening to this message from Christine Kane one time, and it pierced me so hard. And I'm going to speak on it just according to what I remember. But she was speaking about wanting the world to discover you versus getting developed. And she spoke using the analogy of one of those old cameras where you had to put the film in there and you had to take pictures of it. You guys remember that? Right? And there wasn't no autofocus. There wasn't no, you couldn't edit these photos. It was pretty much, hey, snap, and let's just pray that we took a good picture. But what happened after you turned that roll of film into the Walgreens or CVS? She talks about this process of this film having to go into this dark room where it would have to get developed through a series of tests, right? And if there was any exposure to any light outside of that dark room, that image would be destroyed. I'm going somewhere with this. Because for many of us, including me, I wasn't willing to go in that dark room. And that image that God had forged into my life, I didn't want to be developed. See, I wanted the world to discover me, so I wanted to shine my own spotlight upon my life. And so whatever that looked like, I started chasing significance in seeking the world, whether it be shiny objects, whether it was empowering people with drugs so I could obtain some kind of value and significance. That was my way of self-discovery because I was in search of significance. I've been in prison 3 times. The second time I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And I went into discipleship mode for about 3 years. I flourished as a leader in prison. And when I got out, I was in search of that significance again. And for most men that are in prison, what they see as successful coming out is, I got to get a good 9 to 5. I got to acquire some talent or skill so I can become successful. That's the mindset is, if I can get a good job, then I'll become valuable. And I realized that the hard way, because when I got out last time, I walked faithfully for about 2 years. I had a decent job, but when I got fired, guess what happened to my value? It went away with the job. And what I realized in this process, what God was showing me was, it wasn't the job that made you valuable. What made you valuable was the deposit that God had placed inside you. And so though I got fired from the job, I still got the gift. Though I got fired and sent home from the job, I still had the gift. But for many of us, we don't realize what we have. God's gift to us is potential. Our gift to God is to develop it. But for so many years of my life, I've never had anyone come in and help me develop that. I've had so many people come in from prison ministry, preaching and teaching me, telling me what to do, but I never had anyone ask me that great question. I had no one ask me the great question. Who are you? What is your dream? What is your legacy? What were you sent on earth to do? What problem were you sent on earth to solve, Twan? No one ever asked me that. Everyone just told me what I need to be doing. And you know what's wrong with that concept of teaching? Is I never get to verbalize what is inside me. You know, there's a Bible verse that speaks about counsel in the heart of men is like deep waters, right? The answer lies within inside you, but for so many of us, we have such a directive approach that we're never able to draw that out. And if we would practice on becoming better connectors, we would be able to draw the authenticity out of someone's life versus telling you what you should be. You should become this. You know, growing up in my household, I come from a very high performance-driven culture, which is Asian culture, where success is measured by, hey, what's your status? You got to be a doctor. You need to become a lawyer. You need to become this and this and that. And so I was raised up in this household where my understanding of becoming was, I gotta get education. I got to get education so I can become a doctor, so I can become successful. Here I am comparing myself to so many different people because I look at their measure of success and I realize my gift was just sitting there dormant. And I never had that person come in. I used to hear this all the time. Twan, you have great potential. Really? I like hearing that. Twan, you have great potential to do good things. Can you tell me more? But you know what? No one ever actually showed me what that looked like. And as a teenager growing up, believing I had potential, I went in every single direction trying to find out what my dream was. I went from borrowed belief to borrowed belief. I couldn't even travel without because I hadn't traveled within. Because I didn't have an authentic dream of my own. Authenticity has no competition. Write that down. Authenticity has no competition. There's no room for competition when you find authenticity. I guarantee it. But for so many of us, we spent so many years trying to find that. You know, I have a lot of people just kind of follow my story and just follow my Facebook, and it's kind of like, man, how do you find the boldness and the confidence to do what you do? Coming out of prison, I've been home 7 months. I joined the John Maxwell team while I was in prison because of that vision that God gave me. I went all in. I paid the price tag for my personal growth. I started seeing that the greatest detriment in prison culture was the lack of leadership training. Along with vision and authenticity, leadership development outside my faith was the greatest investment I've ever had in my life. Because it was one thing to be able to read the Bible, to lead a Bible study, to understand Hebrew and Greek, but could I actually lead myself? Or would I remain stagnant as a follower? And not only that, here's what happens when you don't have a vision of you being a leader. You'll stay exactly where you're at, and then you'll become real picky on choosing who to follow, because you'll start seeing the flaws in every leader that you surround yourself with. Because you didn't know how to build yourself up as a leader, now it's very hard for you to follow someone that is authentic. One of the greatest lessons I've learned in leadership was never motivate a person outside their potential. I used to lead in prison ministry, and one of the things that I used to see was I was very good at motivating people. I was very good at encouraging you and gathering a crowd and hyping you up. But you know what I lacked? I didn't lack the ability. What I did was I lacked the ability of recognizing your ability. You know what a difference between an eagle and a squirrel is? One flies and the other one climbs. And imagine motivating a person to fly when they were created to climb. I saw that frustration as a leader, because since I didn't have a clear vision of how I was created, I didn't understand my strengths and my weaknesses. So in me trying to operate in something I really didn't know about, I found myself caught up in motivating people outside of their strength zone. And here they are rising up to this expectation because I'm believing in them, but I'm believing in them in an area of weakness that they can never perform to. But the moment I started realizing, hold on, you're a squirrel. Do you know that? No, I didn't know that. I didn't know I was a squirrel. Well, guess what? You are. And you know what I'm going to help you do? I'm going to help you become the best squirrel you can ever be. I'm going to help you climb. I'm going to help you run faster. And if you want some different type of nuts, I'll help you find those. But that was one of the biggest shifts in my leadership, was when I came down to where they're at. And so I used to lead by assumptions. Now I lead by asking questions. That's one of the greatest lessons I've learned in leadership now. And I try to model this because one of my favorite stories is this. Our mentor John Maxwell tells about this when he first opened the John Maxwell Company. And he hired this leadership consultant. I think his name was Bill. He brought him into the team, and I think it was for a 2-day training. Bill asked John question after question. Question after question. And then John finally said, you know what? No more questions. Come on. Why so many questions? And he kept on asking question after question. John said he asked me about 500 questions. And at this point, John says, you know what? Hey, hold on, Bill. Look, let's check this out. Let's stop for a second. I'm paying you to lead this company. Why am I paying you to ask me questions? And I'll never forget what Bill said. He said, John, I ask questions because I have to find you first before I can lead you. I have to find you first before I can lead you. And that shifted my whole way of thinking when it came down to communication. Because how can I ever lead someone if I never found them? Because they haven't even found the real selves. They haven't even found themselves yet, and here I am trying to lead them. Authenticity has no competition. There's no room for comparison, right? There's no room for compromising. So let me say that again. Authenticity has no competition. There's no room for comparison. And there's no room for compromising. How many times have we compromised our character to try to be something that we're not? You know, there's nothing greater than having a true encounter with the real you. I think I was speaking to Penny back there earlier about this. And I love this because you know what happens when you have a true encounter with your real self? You become dangerous. You become dangerous to this world because the world can no longer get you to conform to it. And now you start operating in an element. My mentor calls it the sweet spot. It doesn't matter if I'm speaking to 10 people. It doesn't matter if I'm speaking to 10,000 people. The way I'm wired and the confidence I have and the approval that I have through God allows me to operate in that sweet spot. And there's no greater feeling than being in that place of approval from God, where I'm walking in his glory and only his. I only need his approval. And there's just something powerful when God is manifesting through your life, because that gift is making room for you, Pastor Barb. A man's gift makes room for him and brings them before great men. I'm in a room right now in front of some great men and women. Do you believe that? Hope wasn't a strategy in me getting here. I didn't hope to get on a plane to fly to Iowa. Come on, somebody. My gift made room for me here today. And one thing I've realized is in following your dreams, once you find your gift, give it away. Give it away. Because most of us, once we find that gift, we want to try to make money right away. And it's not the time. But the more you give it away, the more exposure you will get. And with that heart of serving and giving your gift away, it's going to make room for you. The essence of becoming. What are you spending your time becoming right now? You know, what is your vision? Let's recap. We spoke about the essence of becoming. Time is your currency right now. What are you doing with it? I believe there's 1,440 minutes in a day. Every minute matters, does it not? Every day counts. Not only that, every word matters. What will you become today after this message? We spoke about having a clear vision. Do I really know where I'm going? What is your vision? We spoke about authenticity. Who are you? Are you in constant competition right now because you're in a rat race that you'll never be able to win? Are you living a life right now of just constantly comparing yourself to someone? Are you compromising yourself every single day trying to be something you're not? And let me remind you, if you are constantly trying to be someone that you're not, the best you'll ever be is average. The world will miss out on you because you were not created to do everything. That's what happens when you don't find your why. The world will miss out on you. You will go completely unnoticed, becoming a jack of all trades, and you'll master simply nothing. You weren't created to do every single thing. What is your gift? What is your gift? What makes you valuable is what God has placed inside you. There's a deposit inside each and every single one of you. And I'm calling you all leaders right now because you were all born as leaders to lead in an area of your own function. You have to find that. You were all born to lead in some area of function. What is that? What part of the body do you play? One of the most impactful moments in my prison ministry when I was having a meeting and I was addressing the body of Christ, I was letting the guys know that you were created to be part of the body to do something I can't do. And so for so many of us, we think the spotlight is what makes us valuable. And I grew up in a prison culture where everybody used to see that. Is that if I had a microphone in my hand, that's valuable. If I had a microphone in my hand, that would make me significant. And so since they didn't have a clear vision of who they were in the body, they always try to imitate what I do. And since I didn't have a clear vision for their lives either, because I didn't recognize their ability, I did the same thing. I would motivate them to do what I do. And there comes the frustration again. Because the moment they can't meet my expectations, here comes a severed relationship because I've let him down. The greatest words of affirmation you can tell somebody are these words right here. April, I'm counting on you. Pastor Barb, we're counting on you. That's the greatest words of affirmation that you can tell someone, is when I tell you, hey, I need you. I realized when this dream became bigger than me, I couldn't do it on my own. And that's where I came and I sought out April, and basically I had to bow down and say, hey, I need you. I need you because this dream is bigger than me. One is too small of a number to achieve greatness. But it all started with that vision. Because with the right vision, not only will God provide, but you'll find authenticity. And when you have a true encounter with your true self, like I said, you become dangerous. Because the world can't stop you no more. You rise up to a level of confidence that no money in this world can buy. You start seeing your value once you discover your gift. I want to leave you with an action plan today. Just 3 questions. Simple. Write it down. Because great leaders ask great questions. And if you don't lead by asking questions, how will you ever find them? You can ask these questions to your children, to whoever it may be. But who are you? Question number 1, who are you? Question number 2, what is my dream? And number 3, what do I want to be remembered by? What's your legacy? What is my dream? Who are you? And what do I want to be remembered by in this world? I want to leave you guys with that. I've had just a wonderful opportunity just to be in your presence right now, just to share my life with you guys. But that's the one thing I would want to leave with you, is the essence of becoming. What am I becoming? And I